Hi guys, welcome to GP Detroit Deck Tech. I'm Lucas Siao, Silver Level Pro from last year. I'm going to be playing on the Pro Tour next couple times. I was on the Canadian national team once. I've done a couple deck techs before. And for Detroit, it's modern. And I've kind of brought my take on Josh Utter-Layton's Black-Green World Championship deck. And it's, I think, fitting the story begins with him, because for those of you who've been playing Modern for a while, you'll know that in Chicago last year, at the end of the year, around October, he took the Channel Fireball Jund deck and he added Lingering Souls, making 4-color Jund, which became one of the best deck in the format. Bloodbraid Elf got banned afterward. Jacob Wilson won a GP with it. Josh was in the top 8. And all he really did was add 2 white sources and 4 Lingering Souls, and he made it a 4-color Jund deck. So when I was building for this tournament, I thought, I'm going to do the exact same thing he did. I'm going to take a black-green deck, and I'm going to add just 4 Lingering Souls. The really nice thing about black-green is that you get to play 4 Tectonic Edges, which are really good against Tron, really good against blue-white-red, really good against Scapeshift, and pretty good in the mirror. And so if you play a third color, you can't play those Tech Edges usually, but if I only play Lingering Souls, I only need to play a couple white sources. So in this case, I have 2 shock lands, and the 9 fetches, really. And sometimes you can't cast your Lingering Souls, but even when that happens, you have Liliana to discard them and then cast them anyway. Why would I want to play Lingering Souls? And the main reason is that this deck has a couple bad matchups. One is the Affinity, and Lingering Souls is just fantastic against Affinity. 2, and that's why it was originally added to the first Jund deck. 2, the new Jund decks with Planeswalkers are really tough for this deck. Even like a flipped Garruk is really hard to beat, like the Death Touch Wolves. You don't want to waste your removal. You don't want to Liliana a Wolf. You don't have any way to attack through a Death Touch Wolf. So Lingering Souls is fantastic against Planeswalkers. And just harassing them and protecting you from Liliana. So the card's really good in the mirror. And that's kind of why we wanted to play Lingering Souls without hurting our mana base too much. You'll notice that we cut down on Treetop Villages to make our mana a little bit better. We are only playing 2 Treetops, only 3 basics. We kept most of his little, I would say Flare, his Urborg, his Twilight Mire. We cut from the main that he was playing, I think we cut something like a couple removal spells, a couple Garruks, and a discard spell. So just shave here and there to add these Lingering Souls. I'm also playing 1 Fulminator Mage main, which is more to kind of make my sideboard the 15 cards that I want than it is anything else. I wanted access to 4 Fulminators overall, and I didn't want to cut anything from my sideboard, so I cut an Ooze for one of the Fulminators. Ooze is only really exceptional against the pod deck, so I'm happy to play 3, and I haven't played pod yet, so it's worked out pretty good. We're playing 3 Thoughtseize, 2 Inquisition, because there's not really that many burn decks around anymore, but there are people playing a Johnny, there are people playing Splinter Twin, people playing 4 pod. You want to be able to take their 4 drops. And our removal is pretty standard. I think Josh played a Death Mark, we're playing a Disfigure. We have a bunch of Abrupt Decays, a bunch of Pulses. No paths. A big part of the deck, game 1, is that you have Tech Edges, and we used to play multiple Fulminators, but right now we only have 1 Fulminator, but we want to attack our opponent's land, and we don't want to give them free spells. That helps, and Liliana really pressures all their resources. If they're discarding cards, they have to choose between lands and spells, and either they get mana screwed or they kind of have to throw all their spells away. So we don't want to give them any free resources with Path to Exiles. So I think that was, I don't want to say an innovation, but I think that's something that surprised a lot of people. The Path to Exiles are only in the sideboard for matchups where you don't really care about stone raining them. So let's bring it to the sideboard. Another really big reason to play white is that it really improves your 2 worst matchups, which are Tron and Affinity. And you have 6 exceptional white cards. You have 4 Stony Silence, because I'm not losing to Affinity this weekend. And then we have 2 Paths, which are also very good against Affinity and Tron. You get to play Path instead of something like Narrow Lake to Glamour, so you can still kill Worm Coils without any questions, but you also have a good sideboard card against Twin or against Affinity or against anything aggro-y, pod. So I really like the Paths. And we don't have to play anything like Creeping Corrosion because we have the Stony Silences, which serve double duty against Tron. Furthermore, to kind of rain on Tron's parade and for the blue-white-red matchup, we have access to those 4 Fulminators. I really like having a threat that can attack, but also like stops them from casting their big spells, stops them from colonnading you. This deck has very few ways to actually kill a colonnade because Abrupt Decay and Pulse don't hit it. But with 4 Tech Edge, 4 Fulminator, that's not a problem. Infest is for Affinity and Pod. I like a sweeper that doesn't kill your Goyfs and your Oozes. I think that's really strong. You could play something like Damnation, but it's slower, and against the matchups you want it in, it's mostly small creatures anyway, like the Etch Champion or the Mana Dorks from Pod decks. So Infest is, I think, correct. Finally, we get to kind of the spice at the end, which is 1 Sword of Light and Shadow, which I've been playing in Jund for months. I think it's a nice little way to beat the mirror, beat blue-white-red, because pro-white's so relevant against those decks. Lingering Souls is bad for you. You can attack past it. Path to Exile can't kill those things. It can grind everyone out. I like that card. We used to play a Batterskull, but this deck is very mana light because of the Tech Edges and because of the 4 Lilianas that you end up discarding all your resources. So we never found that we were moving or bouncing Batterskull around. So we're trying this weekend, we're trying Blood Baron of Vizkopa. Again, it can't be stopped by Pulse, can't be stopped by Dismember, can't be stopped by Lingering Souls. Most of us playing this deck haven't really seen it that much, but I did see one person play it, and they're playing the Mirror, and their opponent's hand was Dismember and Maelstrom Pulse, so it was definitely better than a Batterskull there. Torpor Orb is just a final card for Pod decks and Twin decks, which I last minute added. And that's, I think, the strength of this deck, is it has a really concrete plan for every matchup. You know, against creatures you have some removal spells, against combo decks you have LD and Thoughtseize, and against all the artifact decks you have the Stony Silences. And I've boarded in every card. This is round 7. I had 3 buys. I've boarded in every card in that sideboard already. There are 4 of us playing this deck this weekend. At the end of round 7, there are 2 7-0s, 1 6-1, and 1 4-2. And I believe between the 4 of us, we had, I think, 7 buys total. So, 1 5-2. So we're doing pretty good. Everyone really likes the deck. Your bad matchups are basically, Tron is still not great. It's like 50-50. Affinity's not great. If you play Stony Silence, they basically can't win, but you lose game 1 usually. Sometimes you don't draw Stony Silence game 2, or you don't draw white mana. Those are the only really bad matchups. The great matchups are Scapeshift. The Mirror I actually really like. I'm not sure why, but I found much more success with this deck in the Mirror. I think this weekend already we're 5-1 in the Mirror. The Blue-White Red's also pretty good. You have a lot less dead removal spells, and you have Fulminators. So you operate on a lot less lands. I like that. So yeah, I definitely recommend this deck. I think it's a cool innovation. A lot of people in Toronto were kind of trying to make this work, and we couldn't get the mana to work. We wanted the 4 Tech Edge, we wanted the white cards, and I think this is what you really have to sacrifice to get all that together. You have to basically say, look, I'm only going to play 2 white sources, which means no other white spells, main deck, and you can kind of then get the white cards in the sideboard. But we've kept the main deck very streamlined, very focused. So I would definitely recommend playing it. And I think it's a good choice for any modern tournaments you guys got coming up.